Hello, everyone. My name's Adam Smith. I am a senior analytical manager in the Making Data Count team at NHS England. It's all quite a mouthful. Uh, Today, I am going to give you a bit of a taster, a flavour of Making Data Count. But I did just look through the name of list of names, and there are some familiar faces on there. Well, names. So it might be a bit basic for some people, but hopefully for others, this will give you a flavour and encourage you to learn more about what we do, and then maybe sign up for some of our other training.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wouldn't worry at all about that, Adam. I think it's
Great,
just like if people are, if it's a refresh, if it's just a reminder to get involved, then it's done its purpose. So it's absolutely
lovely,
fine.
lovely. Uh, so feel free to interrupt me, ask questions, shout out. I don't mind any of that. We'll go through some of the basics, how you can use it, how we recommend you use our approach, and then some examples and good stuff like that. So I should say, I'm an analyst by background, been an analyst for about 15, 20 years, mostly in acute hospitals, and then moved to this job. So I am technically, I guess I'm one of you. I also live in the Midlands, so this is almost the perfect place for me. Right. So what is Making Data Count? For those who don't know, Making Data Count is really all about helping people to use their data for better decision making. We've got three kind of strands to that. So we've got teaching materials. There are interactive PDFs available on the NHS England website. Don't worry about trying to find anything or any links. I've got QR code, Wizzy QR code at the end, which will give you all the links. And we're happy to share these slides as well. So I don't know if you have somewhere to upload them or send them out. So
We do. We can do all of that.
lovely, perfect. So those PDFs are there, teaching materials. We then got lots and lots of tools. I've got some slides on that later. We do also do a lot of training. So most of it is virtual, but in the last couple of years, really, we've been getting out more and more, which is nice, and getting into rooms. We do three main types of training. So we do board sessions where we go in and we spend 90 minutes with trust boards, talk them through our approach. Hopefully, they think about changing mostly their IPR and their board reporting, but then that tends to trickle down to all the way down, really. And we want to go from kind of board to ward. We then got 10-step training program, a bit more info on that at the end. And we also do analyst training, so very specific analyst training. We're just in the process of redesigning that. So that'll be, once we've written the slides, that'll be 3 hours of training. And we go into a bit more detail, a bit more of the statsy, mathsy side, and we give you some worked examples from an analyst point of view. How old is Making Data Count? As I say, Sam loves these whizzy bits. Photos of cake. So we are not one, we are six, and we'll be seven this year. So we've got quite a lot of experience, I guess, now. We've also trained a lot of people. So we've trained nearly 45,000 people, I think the latest count is. And we've been into 240 plus trust boards. So most most of the organisations, NHS organisations around the country, I think.
So I just say, for people, I don't normally interrupt, Adam. I don't know
So
I don't know
don't
what's
worry,
wrong
keep
with me
going.
today.
It's fine.
And I was just going to say, I think it's quite amazing, the reach that you've had so far. And although a lot of people have heard of Making Data Count, I think a lot of people haven't as well. But the fact that, 45,000 people, and I know lots of people who've had the training, but the fact that you're going into boards and supporting boards, in sort of real terms and everything, I think that's just, I think that's really, really amazing. So well done.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I guess 45,000, but there's what, 1.5 million people working in the NHS. So we've got a few more to go yet. So we're always happy to keep running sessions. And I guess a bit of the why do we do this? What was the world like before Making Data Count? Although that's a bit of a grand term, isn't it? But what's the traditional types of reporting? So we used to see, and still do, to be honest, and I am guilty of producing these types of visualizations when I was in trust. We used to see things like this, and these are all real examples. So you've got these kind of rag tables, a bit of rag in there, but you've got spark lines. You've got, I don't even know what you call these boxes at the end, green boxes, and just 2 point comparisons is another thing that we see a lot. So in all these visualizations, they're not the prettiest. And we'll go on. I've got a slide later on which talks about RAG and the dangers of RAG. So RAG isn't the best thing, but I honestly I spent about 10 years ago, I probably spent most of my life creating RAG tables for different reports. And then we've got up and down arrows and spark lines again. So you're getting the sense of what we're used to seeing or what we were used to seeing, and this makes us sad. And then it's not just the visualizations, it's also the words. So look at some of these. So slight decrease from 5.25 to 5.23%. I just don't see that that's particularly relevant or tells us anything. And that also makes us sad. So the words are important too. And to introduce you to a new word, well, might not be a new word for a few of you, it is spuddling. It's an old English word. We picked it up through Susie Dent many years ago. And it means to make a lot of fuss about trivial things as if they're important. And I don't know about you, 20 years in the NHS, I've seen spuddling quite a lot. Lots of people do make a lot of fuss, and as an analyst, I seem to feel like we end up on the end of it. So we're the ones that get that trivial balloon goes up. You know, you have to do lots and lots of analysis, and it's really making a lot of fuss about those trivial things. Oh, and here's a nice drawing that was done a few years ago when we had a an artist in the room at one of our events. So don't be a spuddler is the big message. We've also got some spuddling cards. So we've got a yellow card and we've got a red card. Here's a board member, a clinician holding these up. Uh, these are a bit silly, but they are actually driving a bit of behavioural change. So uh, what happens is in a meeting, if you spot someone spuddling, you wave the yellow card at them. If you spot someone doing it a second time, you wave the red card. They don't have to leave the room. They don't have to leave the pitch. So don't worry about that. But it's a bit of fun and it breaks that tension a little bit. And it's a way of saying you are spuddling. And I've seen these in action in a real life trust board meeting, and it's great. It really takes away that kind of, I guess tension was the right word. So tension in the room when somebody's going off on one and they're talking about things and making a massive fuss. So you can order some of these if you would like some to wave at your colleagues. And we need to remember that variation matters. So variation matters because if we don't understand what normal variability looks like, we're going to have an issue understanding if something is changing in our process or not. And there are two types of variation, two main types of variation. So the first one is expected normal variation. In the SPC language, we call that common cause variation. And I've got a few travel to work examples to bring it to life a little bit. So when I used to live and work in London, I don't know if anyone has or does, the first topic of conversation every job I ever went started was how do you get to work? What tube lines do you go on? What public transport do you get? How long does it take you? And that'd last weeks. It'd be that everyone you met would ask you about that. So when I my last job in London, it took me about 40 minutes to get to work. I went on three different tube lines, made two different changes. And as I say, it took about 40 minutes. So if I was to put this into an SPC chart, it might look a bit like this. So we've got this black line, and I'll explain what an SPC chart is. It stands for Statistical Process Control chart, but I'll explain what it is, what these dotted lines mean, what the icons mean up in the corner there a bit later on. So don't worry too much for now. But you can see on here, this solid black line is just an average, a mean line. Uh, and it took me about 40 minutes to get to work. But it wasn't going to take 40 minutes every single day. I'm on public transport. We all know that that normal everyday variation exists and we will encounter it. So some days, if I was to cross over the platform that changes, the tube was waiting, I jumped on, doors closed behind me. I might get to work a little bit quicker. I might get there in about 30 minutes. If the opposite was true, doors closed before I could jump on, I have to wait for the next one. It might take a bit longer. It might take up to 50 minutes. But that's all within this normal range of variation, all that everyday common cause variation that we all know, we all experience, and we see a lot in our work. Second type of variation is unusual variation, and in SPC language, you call this special cause variation. This can now be split down into two types of special cause variation. So the first one is one-off special cause variation. Now let's pretend I was driving to work, and one day we had an accident. It would take significantly longer to get to work on that single day. So if we were to look at it on an SPC chart, it might look a bit like this. About 20 minutes usually to get to work. And then on this one day, it's taken us a lot longer, up to an hour, to get to work because we've had a bump. We have to get out, make sure everyone's okay, exchange insurance details. Car might not work, might need a tow, might need public transport, etc., etc., etc. But hopefully, this is one-off special cause variation because hopefully we aren't crashing that car every single day. So this is a type of special cause variation. The next type is sustained special cause variation. So I now live in Coventry. Don't know if anyone knows it, but there's a big ring road round the outside of the city centre. My daughter was going to school on the other side of the city, which was a really bad idea, and we've since changed. And it was taking around 23, 24 minutes to get to school every morning. Then roadworks went on. Whole sections closed off. We had to find a different route, and it was taking us a lot longer, about 5 or 6 minutes per leg longer to get to school. And we can see here, if we were to plot that on an SPC chart, we can see before the roadworks happened and then when the dreaded roadworks went on. And what we can see here is a sustained unusual variation, so a sustained increase. But there are two types of sustained variation. So this first type of sustained variation is where we have that impact while there is something impacting and on that underlying process. So in this case, it was roadworks. There's an effect on that process, and we can see while the roadworks are on, we've got that increase in time. Soon as the roadworks come off, we can see now that we've gone back to roughly what we were before, if not a little bit quicker, because supposed efficiencies of the roadworks. And we can see really clearly, I think, on this one that before the roadworks were here, when the roadworks were on and sustained, we had that special cause up here. And then when they come off, we went back to here. Second type of sustained variation is now where we've changed something, but we've embedded that into the process. So I now work from home mostly, and my steps, this isn't real, but my steps might look a little bit something like this on an SPC chart. And we can see here that quite low step count, around 6,000 on average. And then something happened here, and something happened to push the step count up. So what happened? Well, in this story, not in real life, but in this story, we got a new dog. So once the new dog came, had to go out for a walk twice a day, every day. There was no question that that had to happen, and that became an embedded process. That became what we like to call the new normal. And here we can see what we can do is a technique called recalculation. We don't go into that today, but we've got some more information on that in our step training. But what it really does is it draws these dotted lines and changes the mean. So we can see here now that we've got something impacting that process, and it became embedded. And that's the difference here. This type of sustained variation is where it becomes that new normal. It's not just a temporary thing while we've got an impact on the underlying process. Okay, so I've talked a bit about SPC charts, but what is an SPC chart? So here's the anatomy of one. Really simply, they're a time series line chart with some reference lines on. So what do I mean by that? So along the bottom, we've got time. In this case, it's monthly. Commonly in lots of our reporting cycles, it's monthly, but it can be hourly, daily, weekly, 2 weekly, monthly, can even be quarterly, but I wouldn't go much further than quarterly. I'll explain why in a second. Up the side, we've got our measure value. In this case, it's a percentage, but it can be a whole number integer. It can be decimals and rates. It can be decimal percentages. It can be time. It can be currency. You then plot your dots onto the line chart. So against each month, you just plot the dot at the measure value, and then you create this time series line chart. Then, as I say, what turns it into an SPC chart is these three reference lines. So already mentioned it, through the middle, we've got a mean average. So this is just adding up all the values, dividing by the number of numbers. And then we've got these dotted lines, and these are called process limits or control limits. We all use the terms interchangeably, so you're probably going to say both today. The top one is an upper process limit, the bottom one is a lower process limit. And these are calculated using a type of standard deviation. It's not exactly standard deviation. This is a really critical part. It's not exactly standard deviation. So if you were to create these yourselves from scratch and you use standard deviation, you would get the wrong results. You get the lines in the wrong place. It's a type of standard deviation called sigma. And then the dotted lines are plotted 3 sigma away from the mean line. That's all really you need to know for now. We do go into this in a lot more detail in the analyst training, and we step by step walk you through the maths of it. So if you're interested in learning more, maybe sign up for that once we've written the slides. So the important thing really with these dotted lines, because all our tools will plot these for you automatically, the important thing with these dotted lines is that probability wise, over 99% of data points should fall between these two lines. So it's all based on what we can see in the graph, all based on that observable empirical data. The next point, really, what this means is the next point has a 99 plus percent probability of falling between these two lines. And I mentioned quarterly, so we need 15 plus points for a robust analysis. Then, if we think back to quarterly, to get 15 plus points of quarterly data, we're going back about 4 years. And the world was such a different place 4 years ago, with or without COVID, that we don't think it's that relevant or that important to our performance, our current performance. So if we do go back, we can just about go back quarterly, but just be careful because it might be that you are in a very different space now to what you were 4 years ago and what you're comparing now to then on. We've got some rules that look for special cause, that unusual variation that go alongside these SPC charts. So the first rule, we've got four rules, I should say. There are others out there, and if you've done other training, you might have seen others used. But we've done lots and lots of research and decided that these are probably the four most commonly seen in the NHS and four most important for healthcare data. So we've got a single point outside the process limits as the first rule. If we think back, 99 plus percent between these two dotted lines, less than 1% chance of occurring outside the dotted lines, and actually on the mass, it's probably less and less the further away you go. So that's statistically significant. We think it should be looked into. It's an important rule break to identify special cause. Second one is a shift. This is where we got six or more points all in a row, all above or all below the mean line. Here we can see we've got 7 points above that mean line. So that is likely to be statistically significant. Obviously, in these cases, it can happen by chance. So don't worry about that. But we it's a good place to start looking at, and it's a good rule to look for. Very similar one is a run or a trend. This is where we've got six or more consecutive ascending points in consecutive ascending or descending order. This time it can cross the mean line. Then this last one, I always leave it to last on purpose, is 2 out of 3 points close to the process limits. There is a technical definition for close to the process limits, but again, all our tools will look for this, so don't worry too much about that for now. What I like this one for is when I used to work in quality and safety, I'd be looking out for this one because it's really an early warning signal. So if you get this show up, it might be that we're about to tip over into either a shift or a trend, and it's something to look out for. If it's an improvement, we might want to help it along, push it forward, try and embed it, get it so it's got these blue dots. I'll explain what the colours mean as well in a second. If it's a deterioration, we might want to go in and halt it and try and get it back to that normal variation. So we have got that colouring convention that you might have spotted so far. So grey dots are when we've got normal common cause variation. Orange dots, blue dots, and purple dots are when we've got special cause variation, but they mean slightly different things. So orange dots are concerning or deteriorating performance. Blue dots are improving performance. And then we've got the colour purple, which just denotes that there's some change, some special cause in there, but we aren't giving it a direction to travel. We aren't saying up is good or bad. We're just saying that the data has gone up. We've then got summary icons that go alongside the charts. On every chart, you will get one of these variation icons. I was going to draw a circle, but then I stopped. So you'll get one of these. So obviously, orange is special cause, like I just said, the concerning special cause. Blue is improving. Purple is just indicating that there is some change, and then grey is a common cause. So you'll get that in the top right hand corner. If you've got a target associated with your measure and plotted also on your graph, you will get one of these. We don't talk too much about assurance today, we like to call it, but please join a step training if you want to learn more about that. But it follows the same kind of line. So blue for consistently hitting a target, orange F for consistently failing a target, and then we've got this grey question mark where we're hitting and missing the target almost at random. And really, what these colours, what this identification of special causes doing, it should prompt us to ask questions and it should prompt us to do a bit of investigating. So these are the types of questions that we might get based on the different colours. So if we've got an improving performance, what has led to the improvement? Can we spread the learning elsewhere? How can we highlight improvement to board? Orange dots, a bit yellowy to me, but that's orange. Trust me. Uh, what has led to the deterioration? What actions are being undertaken? Who is undertaking action and by when? Purple dots. Was this change expected? What has caused this change? What action, if any, should be taken? Then the grey common cause dots is the fact that nothing is changing is good or bad. So grey is not always good. Common cause, normal variation is not always good. We then want to look at the level of variation and the width of the process limits. So is that level of variation acceptable? What action should be taken and what should it be? Not what should be it. So spotted a grammatical error in Sam's slides. Back to RAG, and again, like I say, we don't talk too much about assurance, but really, what is a RAG rated table trying to do, and what is it telling us? Why are they so bad? So, as I say, I did loads of these about 10 years ago. Naughty me. So, the red boxes are telling us that we failed a target in that month. The green boxes are telling us that we passed the target. Some have got those weird amber boxes that I could never get my head around, that we're nearly passing and failing the target. Nonsense. So if we look at this one, we've got it tends to be starting either in the financial year or going 12 months back. It's also not the greatest range of data, and we like to see a bit more data. So like I say, we need 15 plus data points. So this one starts at April and goes through the financial year to December. It's got those green and red boxes. It's then got a green or red trend arrow, which is telling us really basically it's a 2 point comparison. So it's telling us if this current month is higher or lower than the previous month, which is not particularly useful either. It's then giving us the change, numerical change from the month to month. We don't like 2 point comparisons because they don't tell us about trends. We can't see a further data set. All it's telling us is that this month is higher, lower, or the same as the previous month, and that's a bit brief foresight. It doesn't really tell us anything. So let's pick on two lines in here and see what the dangers of using RAG are. So first one is general surgery. Now we can see in here that all the boxes are red. We've got a red downwards arrow. We've got a negative number at the end. So we might think that not only are we failing because we've got those red boxes, but we're actually also in decline because we've got that downwards arrow. So let's pull it out. Let's look at it on SPC chart. So I have cheated here. I fully admit it. I've added a few more data points just so we can get that robust analysis. But once we do that, we can see that yes, all our boxes will and should be red because we're underneath that target line. But by only looking at it in a RAG table, we've missed this improvement. And the reason we've got a downwards arrow here is because this latest point is lower than the previous point, which is not helpful at all, I don't think. So underneath there, when we pull it out into SPC, we can see we've got this lovely improvement and we're quite close to being able to get over the target line. Probably not consistently at the moment, but we can aim for that. We can start to push there and we can nudge it forward. But by only looking at the RAG table, we might have gone in, we might have done what we like to call tampering, we might have fiddled around with the data, well, the process to then get the data to show something different because, oh no, it's going down. We need to do something. And actually, what we could have done is we could have made it, we could have halted that improvement and we could have stopped those blue dots, stop us being able to get over that target line. Oh, and we should celebrate. Obviously, when we got blue dots improvement, we should always celebrate and share that best practice, like we had on the prompting the questions on the previous slide. Another line for you, rheumatology. So all red downwards arrow, negative number. So we might think it's kind of the same idea. Hidden improvement underneath there. Well, it's the opposite. We've actually got hidden variation, hidden deterioration under there. We've got those orange dots of special cause variation. We can see it's quite stark deterioration, but we might not pick that up. The other reaction to these types of RAG rated tables is that sometimes we look at all the red boxes And we look at the red downs arrow, and it's always been red. It's always going to be red. We just take it for granted that it's always going to be red, and we don't really look at the trends underneath there. And if we had have looked at it on this one, if we'd have pulled it out into SPC chart, we can see we've got that significant deterioration, and we really need to do something about it. Try and halt that deterioration, and at least get us back to kind of common cause grey dots. So here's one for you. This is a real life example taken out of a trust board report. They've since changed. Don't worry. So this is a particularly difficult visualization, I think, to understand, and it's a bit messy and it's a bit horrible. We call these types of lines where you've got lots of lines on one chart, spaghetti charts, and then we've got the bars underneath here. There is some meaning to it, but I don't think we can really pull out as much useful information as we could if we were using an SPC chart. And I'll show you that in 1 second. But then also alongside this went some narrative, and the narrative was just as bad and reacting to the data, the graph that we can see there. So in here we can pull out there was a further decline from last month, double the amount of cancer treatments in year. In December, the trust complete the most amounts of treatment. So that's the type of things we could pull out. And a lot of that sounds a little bit spuddly. I don't know if that's a new word actually that I've just made up, but it sounds a bit like spuddling, making a bit of an issue about things, trivial things as if they're important, when actually we can't really see what's going on in this because the data isn't presented in the best way. Oh, a recovery plan has been drafted as well. No, that's good to know. So what's the true story? When we pull it out and look at it in an SPC chart, we can actually see that we've got significant deterioration. We've got, I think Sam's got the number on here. Yeah, we got 13 months of concerning performance, and even a couple of months that are going outside and below the process limits. So really concerning performance there. Something we need to get a handle on, and we need to find out why. We can see there when we put the arrows on, we've got that range of variation, we've got the target there, and we're really unlikely to hit that target, aren't we? Because the target, we need to be above that red line, and the target's right at the edge of our upper process limit. So it's unlikely we're going to be achieving that target much. And actually, the last time we did achieve that target was in December 2018. So this is February 2020. Maybe don't pay too much attention to the dates because we all know what happens next. But for this story, we can see that it's been, wow, 13, 14 months since we've hit the target. And even then, we hadn't hit it very frequently before. Also, we need to think about when we would have noticed. So this was in a trust board pack. This was in an IPR. When would they have noticed if they'd been looking at it in SPC charts? Well, actually, here at August data, which is November board, we would have been able to spot it then, 6 months before we started to then look at it in SPC charts. Because this is a real life example. This is a trust that Sam was working with. So 6 months before they could have spotted this, and they could have halted that deterioration, or at least looked into it and tried to do something about it 6 months earlier. But they didn't, because they weren't looking at it in SPC charts, and actually the narrative underneath was not helping them to understand what was going on. So this is some of the narrative, and again we've pulled some things out. So they said there was an improvement in 62-day performance and optimistic for the delivery by the end of the year. But actually, well, we can see it. I'll go back a couple we can see that there was that 3 dots higher than the 4 dots previously, but there wasn't statistical improvement, and they didn't deliver by the end of the year. And then we all, as I say, we all know what happens next. COVID hits, and I'm sure they then didn't deliver. Catch up with myself. Okay, so why have we focused on SPC charts? Well, it's not just us. SPC is an old technique. It's be 101 years old this year. Started in the manufacturing industry, but has since been brought over to healthcare. And there's lots of papers out there. These are from, I think, BMJ Quality and Safety, about why we need to stop RAG reporting and the use of SPC charts. And it's also a national expectation. So CQC wrote a briefing paper a few years ago now that said trust boards should look at data as SPC charts and have an understanding of variation. The narrative should be written using common cause and special cause type language. More recently, the Kirkup report has looked at maternity and neonatal services in East Kent. His recommendation was that we should be looking at data as SPC charts as well. And then finally, we've started to get NHS England, our own organisation, to look at data slightly differently. So, uh, end of last year, I believe, very recently, these were two documents were released. One is to about trust boards, and one's about ICB boards. Insightful board, these are called. These are an update on Intelligent board from a few years ago. And in there, there's a really strong recommendation for trusts and ICBs to look at data as SPC charts. We also helped to write some of the appendix. So you'll see some mock examples of what an IPR should look like. And it's full of SPC charts because I wrote it. Also, if anyone is using the federated data platform at the moment, I know we're all planning to, well, going to be asked to move to it, I believe. The performance overview dashboard, that one there, which I think you can request access to, has also fully taken up SPC charts. And this is a thing that our executive team at NHS England are starting to look at and have conversations using this type of data. So a sneak peek of what it looks like. We can see they've got the same colouring conventions, slightly muted tones of blue and grey and orange, but they've got the blue. And then if you hover over something, you'll get this SPC chart pop up using our conventions, our style, our approach. A few more examples for you to look at there. So that's really good. That is really driving conversations and driving our executive conversations with trusts. So the hope is that those will have better conversations, using the data better to make those decisions, and then also encouraging trusts to look at data as SPCs. I should also say the colouring convention come about because we were told that people who are colourblind were having problems reading rag rated tables and charts and things like that. So we came up with this blue, orange, grey, and purple because we did some research and we found that people with colour blindness can differentiate between the different colours, so they can understand and see the charts just as well. So what do we recommend? What style of reporting do we recommend? Well, obviously SPC charts. That's our whole reason for existing. But within there, we've got other views as well. So this is what we call a matrix view. This is where we're using those summary icons. So along the top, we've got that assurance, which is looking at targets. There's also a box if you haven't got a target on your measure. Then down the side, we've got our variation icons. Purple isn't in this example, but it does exist in our tools. So you can also have purple in there on this matrix view. And what this is doing is really placing measures and metrics into different boxes. So we can see top row is improving, middle row is that common cause not changing, bottom row is deteriorating, etc., etc. And really, what we want to be doing is we want to be looking at where the metrics are, and it gives us areas to focus on and think about when maybe want to improve some things and do some work. So really, we want to be focusing on these bottom ones, anything that's worsening and failing the target. Particularly, we want to look at anything that's failing the target, we might want to have a look at. Although, on that note, we know that a lot of measures, things like A&E, are consistently and have consistently failed the target for years and years and years. So, in those cases, we aren't that worried if it's in the common cause or in the improving. Definitely not if it's in the improving, because something is happening underneath. But lots and lots of trusts for A&E performance in particular will sit in this middle box of failing the target, but actually they're not changing. It's really stable performance. Those blue stars there, the boxes really we want to be into. We want to be improving. This is probably should have a double star. This is where we definitely where we want to be. We want to be improving and consistently passing the target. So that's a really good view to give people a quick overview. And you don't have to present them with pages and pages and pages of charts. You can just show this, and on this one, it's probably got about 20 different measures. We can do up to 25 in our Excel tools, but we've got some more at scale solutions where you can put hundreds in if you really wanted to. Icon tables, these are another really good way of showing lots of measures without going into the detail of lots and lots of charts. So on here, what have we got? We've got six, another six. So this is 12 different measures we've got on one page, looking at the latest performance. We've got some previous in there as well. And the key part here is that we've got these variation in assurance icons. So we can look at the combination of icons and quickly think about where we want to focus our efforts on. So these two, for example, deteriorate performance and consistently failing the target. We definitely want to go and find out what's going on there. Interrelated charts are another thing we like to see, particularly in IPRs, but this works for other reporting as well. So in this case, these are cancer metrics. I think I can't really see it very well. Yeah, cancer, it says at the top. So we've got different charts. So we've got 4 charts on cancer in here. We've got a nice bit of narrative. We've got some summaries, some actions, some assurances, and we've got these summary icons as well. So quickly we can see across 4 measures, across a program of cancer, we can start to see what's going on with different measures. So now we're into Sam's particular section of this presentation. I'm sure you'll see the difference. So how do people react to making data account reports? So they might be shocked at first, and then they might be happy because they've managed to change their reporting. So lots of smiley faces. But the serious part behind this is the testimonial. So we're blowing our own trumpet a little bit, but these are some of the great feedback that we've had about making data count and also people using SPC charts. Here are a lot more testimonials, so I'll let those pop up and let you have a little read. I'll take a slurp of cold coffee. But really, what happens here is for a lot of people, this is turning on a light bulb. So people are really looking at this, particularly at board level. So they're seeing these reports and they're going, this is a great way for me to have assurance across a lot of metrics and to actually understand the data. Previously, they might have got 300 pages plus board reports. 100 of that might have been an IPR with pages and pages of data and different types of visualizations on there. But here we can really get it down to just a few key pages and a few key graphs. Sam's also had a paper published in BMJ Leader about the impact of our training. Another set of spuddling cards in there because we talk about spuddling. So if you're interested, have a look at that. We've then got some videos that might be helpful. We've got videos on a future NHS platform. I've got a link for that in a second. And there's a couple of things on YouTube as well. So if you want to learn a bit more, there's some clinicians talking here, which is also really, really valuable, I think, about the impact it has for them. So on to what role you can play. So Sam went a bit superhero crazy on this one. So you can be the superheroes. So if your world is like this, if you have these types of reactions when you have to do anything, I know that a long time ago I had lots of these reactions, if not all of these reactions. There is a different way. There is an alternative. You can be happy. You can have a hipster beard. You can hang out in coffee shops and be really pleased about the work you're doing with SPC charts. But there's a real message behind this. It is really powerful for analysts. So a couple of slides time, we've got analyst teams who have given a testimonial about the way it's changed their work and the way it's changed their daily lives. So if you are asked for this type of stuff, so lovely stacked bar chart there, terrible spaghetti there, this is a really bad example on purpose, but you know what we're getting at. And then some rank rate tables, you can say no. No, there's a better way of doing it. This isn't the best way to show the data. You can then do that superhero thing. I don't know if you have to get a cape and wear it, but can if you want, I guess. So fulfilled and empowered analysts. So as I say, this is an analyst team that we worked with for about 18 months in the north of England. I can't exactly remember where this is. Sam who worked with these people, and she also got them some plaques with some stars on to say that they were stars. But they were really happy about taking on board what we were doing, and it went really slow. So this is what they said. So we helped them to redevelop their trust IPR as part of the program work we were doing. So really positive experience overall. Whole development improvement process has been very empowering. And that's what we hear from people who take this on and we work with and they change what they're doing. It makes it really empowering for them. Uh, so you can see there, confident and truly see our IPR process adds value to the trust and trust board. And it's not just the IPR. We do talk a lot about board reporting and IPRs, but it is all the way down. It can really work. And Morecambe Bay are a great example where they've started to get it right the way down from the board level we started at, but they've gone into their divisions, they've gone into their departments and down to their wards, and they are really full scale getting it from board to ward. Final few in the wrap up. What have we got on offer? So I mentioned this really at the start, but what's on offer is we've got that board training. I say 240 plus boards already. If your board hasn't had one or hasn't had one in a while, please get in touch. We can do refreshers or we can come and do a first stab at scale training. So we've got that step training, 45 plus thousand people, analyst training. So we're we are writing the slides at the moment. We're hoping to run a few trials in maybe early March, and then we'll start offering it out. And we think we're going to offer it out generally so that different anyone can sign up to come along, but it will be aimed at people who work with data a bit more closely because we go into the more technical detail. We've got lots of tools and resources, and I've got a slide on that in a second. Network. So we've got an analyst network. I think there's about 1,000 members, and we have network meetings probably every month, if not every 2 months. It depends how much we've got to talk about, how busy we are. And we get about 200-300 people, and I think some of the subjects are really interesting. It's not all about SBC, and I've got a flyer for it in a second of our next network meeting. And we provide a compelling narrative. Not sure what Sam meant by that, but we do provide a compelling narrative. So, couple of things here. If anyone speaks Norwegian, Making Data Count has been translated into Norwegian. They've got their own little mini guides in Norwegian. It's also been translated into Swedish as well. So if you can read Swedish, you can have a look at that. But we're starting to get some international spread. Sam's been out to Norway and Australia. So Western Australia were the first to pick it up, but all the health authorities in Australia have now decided that making data count is the way they want to do it. So there's lots and lots of work going on there. Collaboration space. So this is probably one of the most important slides. If you don't do anything else, please do sign up to this Futures Workspace. This is where we share everything. So we share all our calendar, our events, our training, slides, materials, tools, videos, etc., etc. There's also a really lively discussion forum with people from all over the world, experts in SPC answering questions on there for us. So please sign up to that. I'll put the link in the chat as well in a second. And we've got lots of tools. So as I say, lots of free Excel tools. We can do single SPC chart on one tool. That's probably what I use most of the time, as it's really, really simple to use and gives you an SPC chart really quickly. We've then got multi-chart tool, which is 25 charts on one. We've got other types of SPC charts. We've got funnel plot tool, Pareto chart, and a benchmarking tool. And we talk about these different tools all the way through our 10 steps of training. But they're in the tools folder on the Futures platform. Then we've got more technical solutions to do stuff at scale. So our old colleague Matt wrote a brilliant SQL script, thousands and thousands of lines long, which then will take your data in, pump out an extract at the end where it's calculated everything for you, which you can then hook into your Power BI solution, your BI solution. So it might be Power BI. We've got a click way of doing it. We've got an extension, and it can work in Tableau as well. Should say on the Power BI that Western Australia, who we've been working quite closely with, have released a free custom visual. So I don't know loads about Power BI, but apparently that's where you can go into the Microsoft Store, you can download it into your Power BI, and you can drag and drop SPC charts in. They've taken all our colouring conventions, all our styles, and a few more bells and whistles as well. So it is completely free. There are commercial companies who do this, charge quite a lot of money, I believe, but this one is totally free for everyone to use. So really encourage you if you use Power BI and want to do SPC charts, that would be something to have a look at. There is also an R package and a Python library, although I think this is still in development. I think it's in alpha testing, not even beta. So have a look for that. That's the name, I believe, of the custom visual. But if you've got any questions, give us a shout. I can point you in the right direction. And then the R package is NHS Plot the Dots if you use R. And as I mentioned, the analyst network. So this is a joining link, a QR code, and then a joining link. And the next one is next week. I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Uh, should also say Analyst Network's been going for about 5 years now. So lots and lots of good stuff on there. All the recordings are on futures and we've got session index. So have a look at that. If there's anything that you're interested in, you can always watch the recording again. Sign up there. And this next week, we are talking about AI in the federated data platform. So everyone's talking about AI, aren't they? But if you're interested in that type of stuff, feel free to come along. And this is our training program. This is our 10 steps of training. Today was a real whiz through. We do a bit more of an introduction in the introduction to making that account, handy title. But then we go through lots of other things. So, second one is a demo of the tools, narrative, bit more advanced SBC knowledge, benchmarking, improvement techniques, triangulation, data driven conversations, making qualitative data count. That's run by experts in qualitative data, not us, which we are not experts in that. And then the final one is targets and trajectories. And I expect we'll be adding an 11, a 12, and a 13 and a 14 in the coming months. Oh, and they're all CPD accredited. So if you're interested in that thing or it's important in your roles, you'll get a point for each one. We're also hoping to make the analyst training CPD accredited once we've written the slides. Final one. Why do we do all this? Well, we want people to stop running around like headless chickens and bring it back to the patient. It's really important. By looking at the data in a better way, we can make better decisions, which will ultimately impact patients. And ultimately, I think that's mostly the reason why we're all here. And then, thank you very much. I finished 3 minutes early, so I've got 3 minutes for questions. That's that QR code, by the way. Have a look on there, all the links. I will also put the URL for the QR code in the chat in a second. My email address at the bottom. And then we moved from the dark side to blue sky. So if you are on social media, please feel free to give us a follow on there. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. That was a really brilliant overview of making data count and what you've achieved so far. Hugely inspiring, and hopefully for people who haven't heard of it or just needed that a little bit of a reminder, a little bit more confidence maybe to push back on being asked to produce the same things in the same way. Then this was their sign to change things for the better. That was really. I have got a zillion questions, so we're definitely not going to be able to get through those. But I would just we started off at the beginning by saying. I think some of this was inspired. Well, we talked about Mohammed and the training that he did last week that you went to, Adam. And I think Sam's told me a story. I think of how she was inspired by Mohammed for this. So what this does, obviously SPC isn't new. It's 101 years old, as you say, and lots of different organisations, including NHS, have used it. And there's a couple of questions on that as well. But it's really it's kind of the brand. It's using something to for people to actually sort of recognize it, and having all the tools and the support and the confidence that they're making data count actually has. So I think it's been super, really effective, and the word is and continues to get out. I think the last slide about sort of it is about the patient. Of course, it is about the patient, and that's what people want. Analysts and others, they want to be able to have an impact. They don't want to be sort of invisible in the process, and knowing that what they produce can allow decision makers to make actually better decisions and more focused on statistically important messages and information is really great. So I'll do what I'll do. I think I will just share the screen because there's just loads of questions, and we won't be able to cover them because we've hit 12 o'clock, and you may have to go, and I'm sure lots of other people will disappear. But this is the kind of thing that, like, the first one was they don't understand that 24 years ago the Allocates the Modernisation Agency was launched, and it was this was bread and butter, and this person, I think I know it, has worked with Sam in Ealing, and then so this has been on her mind for a long time, and it's been the last few years when it's really sort of been a bit moving forward. So what can we do to help her? And so I'm not asking you to. What I'll do, Adam, if it's okay with you, I will share these with you after
Yeah, that's fine.
today.
I'll just
Then
pick
I
up,
can. Yeah.
if it's okay, just to pick up one or two
Uh,
really quick points. So,
sure. No,
have you made,
I've got time. I've got time.
lovely, I've got time as well. Have you made links with the NCF? So I should have said that. I didn't read the notes on the slides. So the analyst training that we are developing is
Yeah.
linked to exactly to the competencies, and
Right. Okay.
we're roughly
Good.
in the same team as the guys who are doing that at NHS
Yeah.
England. So yes, it
Okay.
will be and is linked. I've read through most of them.
Okay.
Lots of them will get answered in our step training. I'm sorry, that's a
Okay.
horrible answer. But
No, that's
if
fine.
you want to learn more, please go to step training. So stuff like seasonality, how there was something about aggregated data. I agree, but we talk about that and how we can use icon summary tables to break down the aggregation. Uh,
Yeah.
I think that's most of the ones I spotted. I also put the links at the bottom, so they're me putting those URLs.
Okay. So what I'll do is I will sort of share those afterwards. So just to make sure that we've picked up on everything everyone's said, and I'll share in an email just in case it's not as easy for people just to or they're not in that frame of mind that they want to click on links and things right now. So if I'll follow up in an email, and I'll give them all the links and the opportunity to sort of get involved with the training and see all the resources and so on. It can be quite, in some ways, there's so much information. It's like it can be overwhelming to know where to start, and I probably would start with the training if that's probably like an easier way to sort of like work through what people need and so on. Yeah, so I just thank you, Adam. Thank you ever so much for. I hope you had a nice few days off, because obviously this is like back to work with a bang. Thank you, Sam, for setting you up, and you've done an absolutely
Yeah, no worries.
marvelous job. And thank you everybody else for coming today. We've got a huddle lined up for in a couple of weeks. I won't talk about our training opportunities yet, but we have got lots of information. That will share with you on the MDC after today's session, and the recording, as usual, will be available on the website in a couple of days' time. And I